Symbolism is the most common device used by modern writers. It is a technique which conveys some meanings through indirect method. To the Lighthouse has proved a profitable ground for symbol hunters. Hello and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my channel and I am Mehreen. While explaining symbolism in To the Lighthouse, I would try to give some textual extracts from the novel too, so that you may understand symbolism in a better way. I know most of the students do not go for textual readings. There are four important symbols in the novel: the sea, the lighthouse, the personality of Mrs. Ramsay in life and in death, Lily Briscoe's picture. These are the chief things held together which pervade the book. These are all woven together in an invisible elastic net. Besides these symbols, there are some minor symbols too, which I will definitely explain. The sea in To the Lighthouse is the external flux of life and time, in the midst of which we all exist. It constantly changes its character. The sea is to be heard all through it. Waves of the sea symbolize momentum of life, the movement of life. Different characters in the novel interpret the sea variedly. To Mrs. Ramsay, at one moment it sounds soothing and consoling like a cradle song, and at the other time it looks like a ghostly roll of drums remorselessly beating a warning of death. It brings terror sometimes. Its power, weeping savagely in, seems to reduce the individual to nothingness. At others, it sends up like a fountain of bright water, which seems to match the sudden springs of vitality in the human spirit. The sea surrounds the island on which the action takes place, which suggests both the human race in general and the individual personality. The sea also surrounds the lighthouse as it stands solitary, sending out its intermittent beams. The lighthouse holds a whole cluster of suggestions. To James, as a child, it had seemed a silvery, misty-looking tower with a yellow eye that opened suddenly and softly in the evening. When he nears it in the boat at the end, it is a stark, straight tower. The lighthouse is a symbol of mystery, but it also concerns day-to-day living. It is at once distant and close at hand. It is man-made, something permanent and enduring that man has built in the flux of time to guide and control those at the mercy of the destructive forces. From this aspect, it seems related to the human tradition and its values. Lighthouse, in a way, is a kind of a relationship between a man and its traditions, because it establishes a kind of communication with them and illumines them. To Mrs. Ramsay, as she sits knitting in the window, the lighthouse seems at one moment the light of truth, stern, searching, and beautiful, with which she can unite her own personality. At another time, she thinks about the lighthouse that it is a steady, pitiless, an enemy of any peace of mind, or again, a reminder of the past ecstasy, thus bringing it into the present. But it always illumines and clarifies the human condition in some way. The title of the book, To the Lighthouse, is the symbol of a quest for the values which it suggests. The tower is frequently shadowed in mist, Its beams are intermittent in the darkness. The moments of assurance they bring are momentary, but upon these assurances, reality rests. Lily Briscoe, on the island struggling with aesthetic relationships in her picture, has the illusion of the loving presence of Mrs. Ramsay, who is dead, and the compulsion to share her emotion with Mr. Ramsay, whom she has always feared and disliked. The painting of Lily Briscoe symbolizes achievements of all desires, struggles against gender, feminism, and independent women. To reach to the lighthouse is to establish a creative relationship. Mrs. Ramsay, in spite of her flaws and the flaws others invent for her to satisfy their own subjective needs, Mrs. Ramsay remains a symbol of creative vitality. So, Mr. Ramsay stands as a symbol of sterile, destructive barrier to relationship. Virginia Woolf must allow him some saving grace, but we are seldom allowed to see what has made Mrs. Ramsay give him her, and the moments of real communion between them are very few. Mrs. Ramsay is described in images of fertility and the warmth and comfort of love and of harmony with others, while Mr. Ramsay is evoked in images of sterility, hardness, and cruelty, and of deliberate isolation. Mr. Ramsay stands at window lean as the knife, narrow as the blade, full of the twang and twitter of nervous tension. He is presented in the images as the beak of brass, barren and bare, the arid scimitar of the male, which plunges into Mrs. Ramsay's fountain and spray of life. He is wagon wheel that James imagines going blindly over a person's foot, leaving it purple crushed. He continually dramatizes himself as an heroic, lonely figure, the leader of a lost expedition in the mountains of the desert. Mr. Ramsay always flies to women to be soothed and reassured. He represents reason or logic. He lacks human feelings. He sees everything with a scientific view. He is a realist who neither has illusion about life nor can he tolerate anybody else harboring illusions. In Virginia Woolf's novels, and there is no usual comparison between the characters. Reason and logic both are associated with men, and fantasy with a female. Males are more expressive, and they are related to the world of politics, social change, and reason, while females in her novels tend to be invisible, unknown, and unseen. Men are aggressive, tend to be everywhere, and known. Females have a subjective or mystical withdrawal. Identity is the central issue in her novels. There is always quest for identity. To the Lighthouse satirizes the Victorian women's standards and culture. Women of Virginia Woolf's novels are mostly sensitive, poetic, live in their own personal domain. They have the self-woven webs, and surely they have a similarity between themselves and the writer too. In each of her books, there is a subtle penetration in man and women relationship. The women in Woolf do not like to be exposed. They like to remain in their own inner world. It seems that males have usurped the rights of women. Besides these major symbols, there are some minor symbols too. The window through which Mrs. Ramsay often looks to the sea and lighthouse is a symbol of a screen between reality and consciousness. There is a constant series of color symbolism running throughout the novel. Red and brown appear to be the colors of individuality and egotism, while blue and green are colors of impersonality. Mr. Ramsay's color is red and brown. Lily is an impersonal artist and her color is blue. Mrs. Ramsay stands somewhere between and her color is purple. The journey to the lighthouse symbolizes a journey from egotism to impersonality. Mrs. Ramsay is the symbol of feelings and emotions, which are the essential part of life. She is above all the creator of fertile human relationships. To sum up, Woolf's extensive use of symbols increased the expressive power and range of language and convey mystic and spiritual truths. Symbols also render the psyche of her characters. The title indicates a voyage, but rather psychic voyage. I hope you have understood all the symbols present in the novel.